For about 1,000 years, we've been told this one simple story. New technology comes along, and that means more prosperity for everybody. It's almost a given. But what if it's not a guarantee? What if it's actually a choice? Today, we're digging into that exact question. Is our current tech boom really building a fairer world for all of us, or is it just creating a new gilded age for a tiny few?
And look, this fear that technology might leave people in the dust, it is not new. Not at all. We have to go all the way back to 1930, when the brilliant economist John Maynard Keynes was already talking about it. He called it technological unemployment. He was worried that we just get so incredibly good at automating work that we literally couldn't invent new jobs fast enough. Sound familiar? It's the very same debate we're having right now.
This brings us to a really central idea called the productivity bandwagon. It's this super optimistic belief that a rising tide of technology lifts all boats. The logic seems pretty solid, right? Companies use tech to get more productive, the whole economic pie gets bigger, and so naturally everyone gets a bigger slice. Better jobs, higher pay, the whole shebang. It's a really comforting story. But is it true?
Okay, so let's put that myth to the test. Let's look at the shiny promise of this productivity bandwagon and stack it up against the, well, often pretty grim reality we see throughout history.
Yeah, that promise of shared prosperity, it doesn't just fall short, it often clashes violently with the historical record. I mean, think about it. New watermills and windmills in the Middle Ages, you'd think that would help the peasants. Nope, they were squeezed even harder. The Industrial Revolution, for many workers, it just meant longer hours and wages that went nowhere. And in its absolute darkest form, the cotton gin, an incredible productivity breakthrough, did nothing but intensify the horror and savagery of slavery. The bandwagon didn't just fail to give everyone a ride. A lot of the time, it just ran people over.
So, if progress isn't automatic, then what decides which way it goes? The argument we're exploring is that it all comes down to a choice, a vision. And, most importantly, it comes down to who has the power to make their vision a reality for the rest of society.
A perfect and kind of chilling example of this is the Panopticon. We all think of it as a design for a prison, but guess what? It was originally designed for a factory. The purpose wasn't to empower workers or make their jobs easier. It was a technology of pure surveillance, designed so that a few managers could watch a ton of workers and squeeze more labor out of them without having to pay them a penny more. This is technology being designed for control, not for mutual benefit.
And this power of a single vision can be unbelievably dangerous when it's blinded by ego. Take Ferdinand de Lesseps, the guy who built the Suez Canal. He was so completely certain his vision for a sea-level canal in Panama was the only way, he just ignored all the warnings from engineers. His stubborn refusal to listen, to adapt his vision, led to one of the biggest engineering disasters in history and the deaths of more than 20,000 workers. His vision became their tragedy.
But, and this is a really important but, it doesn't have to be this way. This isn't some iron law of history. Because history also shows us a time when we actually flipped the script, when progress was deliberately bent toward the common good, and it paints a much more hopeful picture.
So how on earth did that happen? Well, it was thanks to the rise of what you could call countervailing powers. It was a struggle that took over a century. It started with the very first trade unions and worker movements demanding a voice. Then it grew with the progressive movement, which took on the massive monopolies and so-called robber barons. And finally, it was solidified by New Deal laws that gave unions real, actual bargaining power. All these forces created a balance, making sure that the vision for technology wasn't just dictated from the very top.
And the results of that balance? They were absolutely stunning. The hard data speaks for itself. Between 1949 and 1973, real wages for both men with less education and men with more education grew at almost the exact same rate, a healthy 3% per year. For the first time, the productivity bandwagon was actually working. It was working because society had built the guardrails to make sure the gains were shared by everyone.
Which, of course, brings us to our current era. And it begs the really big question. If we figured out the formula for shared prosperity, why does it feel like the bandwagon is completely broken all over again? The whole story is right here, in this comparison. In that post-war era, technology was often used to create brand new tasks for people to do, and powerful unions made sure workers got their fair share. But then, around 1980, the vision changed. The new digital technology became obsessed with automation and cutting labor costs, right at the same time that unions were losing their power. And the result? You guessed it. Inequality just skyrocketed. And please, don't think this is just some abstract trend. Look at this number.
-20%. That is the approximate drop in real, inflation-adjusted wages for American men without a college degree since 1980. That is a staggering, life-altering reversal of fortune for millions and millions of people. And it's a direct result of this new direction technology has taken.
Let's just zoom out and look at the whole economic pie for a second. In the post-war era, about 70 cents of every dollar of national income went to labor. That's wages, salaries, benefits. Today, that number has fallen below 60 cents. Now, a 10-point drop might not sound like a lot, but we are talking about trillions of dollars being shifted away from the pockets of working people and into the hands of the owners of capital. Trillions.
And this wasn't an accident. This was driven by a brand new ideology. The new mantra in business became re-engineering the corporation. The goal wasn't a loyal, well-paid workforce anymore. The goal was to automate, to cut labor costs wherever possible. In this new vision, sharing the gains with your workers wasn't a sign of success. It was seen as a failure of management.
So it's a pretty tough picture. But here is the most crucial takeaway of all. If the path we're on is the result of choices, then that means we can make different choices. The future isn't written in stone. We actually have the power to grab the wheel and redirect technology once again.
So how do we do it? Well, the book lays out 3 big levers we can pull. First, we have to change the narrative. We need to stop being so dazzled by automation for its own sake and start asking a better question. How is this technology actually useful for humans? Second, we have to rebuild those countervailing powers. Stronger unions, sure, but also consumer movements and civic groups that give regular people a real say in how tech is developed and deployed. And third, we need some serious policy reforms. Things like changing our tax laws that actually reward companies for replacing workers with machines, getting a handle on data collection, and breaking up tech monopolies. At the end of the day, this is the question that we're all left with. The path of technology isn't some force of nature that we just have to accept. It is the outcome of thousands of choices that we make as a society. Choices about who holds power, whose vision for the future gets built, and who deserves to share in the rewards of progress. The struggle is ongoing, and the future? Well, that's up to us to decide.